History remembers kings, generals, and conquerors. But this story begins with a man history tried to pretend never existed. He lived quietly, far from battlefields and royal courts. No statues were built for him. No victories were celebrated in his name. He was a scholar, one of many, working in candlelit rooms where dust settled thicker than glory. His life was devoted not to power, but to truth. Day after day, he studied restricted archives few were allowed to enter. These weren't the books shown to students or copied for public libraries. These were original records, uncorrected, unpolished, untouched by storytellers. And slowly, something began to feel wrong. Dates didn't align. Victories were recorded before battles supposedly happened. Entire figures appeared once and then vanished forever. At first, he assumed error, then coincidence. Then coincidence became pattern. He noticed that whenever certain ideas appeared, ideas questioning authority, legitimacy, or divine right, those texts ended abruptly. Pages were torn out, ink was scratched away, margins were burned. And more disturbingly, the names connected to those writings simply stopped appearing in history afterward. No death records, no exile notes, just silence. Late one night, while cross-referencing multiple manuscripts, he found something different. A document hidden inside a binding, never meant to be cataloged. It wasn't a story or a prophecy. It was an explanation. A cold, methodical breakdown of how power truly survived through centuries. Not through armies alone, not through religion alone, but through controlled knowledge. It described how certain truths were allowed to exist only until they became dangerous. And when they did, the truth wasn't argued against. It was erased. So were the people who discovered it. As he read, his hands began to shake. This wasn't theory. It was instruction. A system. One that explained gaps in history scholars had argued over for generations. And at the bottom of the page, written in a different hand, were words that changed everything. If this record is found, destroy it, and ensure the finder is forgotten. In that moment, the scholar realized something terrifying. He wasn't studying history anymore. He had stepped inside it, and history was now aware of him. At first, he told no one. Knowledge like this felt heavy, dangerous, like holding a blade without a handle. He returned the document to its hiding place, convinced that silence was the safest choice. But silence has a way of rotting the mind. The words echoed in his thoughts day and night. So he tested the waters. He mentioned small inconsistencies to trusted colleagues. Not the document, not the system, just questions. Their reactions were immediate and unsettling. Conversations ended abruptly. Smiles faded. One man physically stepped back, as if distance itself could protect him. A week later, his access to the restricted archives was quietly reduced. No explanation, no argument. Then the visits stopped. Friends who once debated late into the night suddenly became unavailable. Doors that were once open remained shut. Letters went unanswered. Even his name, spoken aloud, seemed to make people uncomfortable. One evening, as the city slept, there was a knock. A single messenger stood outside, no insignia, no announcement. He spoke politely, calmly, as if delivering advice rather than a threat. Some knowledge, the man said, is permitted only once. He suggested the scholar focus on safer work. Popular history, approved narratives, stories that comfort rather than disturb. Before leaving, he added one final sentence, almost kindly. "Forget what you read, or you will be forgotten as well." That night, the scholar understood the truth. This wasn't censorship after the fact. This was prevention. The system didn't punish rebellion. It suffocated curiosity before rebellion could begin. Still, the scholar hesitated. He told himself the warning was enough, that survival mattered more than truth. But fear has an opposite twin, defiance. And defiance won. Before dawn, he returned to the archive and copied the document by hand. Every word, every symbol. He didn't know why, only that some instinct told him the truth needed redundancy to survive. As he finished, he noticed something carved faintly into the desk, something he'd never seen before. A name, scratched deeply, then violently crossed out. Someone had been here before him, and whatever happened to that person was about to happen again. The erasure didn't begin with chains or guards. It began with absence. The scholar arrived one morning to find his name removed from the archive ledger. Not crossed out, not corrected, simply gone. As if it had never been written there at all. When he questioned the clerk, the man looked genuinely confused. "There's no record of you ever working here," he said. Within days, the same thing happened elsewhere. University lists, research acknowledgments, even private correspondence returned unopened, marked unknown recipient. His past was dissolving, piece by piece. Worse still, people began forgetting him. Not dramatically, not instantly, just enough to feel unnatural. A former student passed him on the street without recognition. A colleague introduced himself as if they'd never met. The scholar realized something horrifying. This wasn't punishment. This was systematic deletion. Then came the summons. No seal, no signature, just a location and a time. He understood that. Refusing wasn't an option. Refusal itself would be treated as confirmation of guilt. He entered a chamber with no windows and very little furniture. The men inside never accused him. They never asked questions. They already knew. One of them spoke calmly. "History is a structure. Remove the wrong stone, and it collapses." They told him the document he copied no longer existed, that the knowledge he uncovered had been neutralized many times before, and that he was not the first to believe truth could survive exposure. He was offered a choice, though it wasn't presented as one. Disappear quietly, or be remembered incorrectly. The meeting ended without guards escorting him out. None were needed. By the time he stepped outside, his life was already over. From that day forward, official history went completely silent about him. No execution record, no exile mention, no burial site. Only a clean, impossible gap where a human being once stood. But the system made one mistake. It assumed all traces had been destroyed. It was wrong. Years passed. Empires shifted. Rulers died. New histories were written. And the scholar's absence remained perfect. Too perfect. No rumors, no legends, just emptiness. Until a minor historian noticed something strange. While examining an unrelated manuscript, he found a marginal note written in faded ink. It wasn't connected to the text itself. It didn't explain anything. It simply warned, do not repeat his conclusions. No name, no context. The historians searched for references. None existed. But similar notes appeared elsewhere, rare, scattered, always vague, as if many people had known something and collectively agreed never to explain it. Over time, scholars began noticing patterns, gaps that aligned too well, questions that produced discomfort rather than answers, a sense that history had been aggressively edited. One theory emerged quietly. Some individuals weren't erased because they failed. They were erased because they succeeded. The system didn't need to destroy truth everywhere. It only needed to remove those capable of connecting it. And then, decades later, the copied document resurfaced. Incomplete, damaged, but unmistakable. It had been hidden inside a private collection, passed down without explanation, never studied deeply, out of fear or instinct. Its final line matched the warning exactly. Proof that the scholar had existed. Proof that he had been right. But the document was never published, because even now, some truths remain dangerous. History tells us what happened. Rarely does it tell us what was prevented. The scholar's story isn't about one man. It's about a system that understands something deeply uncomfortable. People don't need lies to be controlled. They only need partial truth. By deciding what questions are allowed, by deciding which answers survive, power becomes invisible. That's why some stories end abruptly, why some names vanish without explanation, why curiosity has always been treated as a threat. The scholar didn't die a hero. He didn't inspire revolution. He simply disappeared, so completely that most people never noticed. And that was the point. Because the most effective censorship doesn't feel like force. It feels like normality. So when you encounter a missing chapter, an erased name, a question no one seems comfortable answering, remember this story, not as proof, but as warning. Some truths don't vanish because they're false. They vanish because they work.